Hi, my name is Michael from Whizzbangsblog, and it's great to have you here once again and listen to a great video, or it's actually the audio of Dan Schindler from Donuts.co. He's one of the co-founders of Donuts, and he's going to be talking all about the new gTLDs and all the great things happening in that space. And I know it's a must listen to audio cast on hearing about him and his perspective from the registry side of the fence. I think a lot of domainers have wondered what's going on with the new gTLDs and whether it's worthwhile investing in. A lot of misinformation's been out there and all that sort of stuff. But Dan, I hope, is going to answer a lot of those questions. We had a great time with a whole pile of people on the webinar this morning, so if you haven't been on one of the webinars with Whizzbangsblog, you've got to get there. Lots of great information is coming out. And shortly we're going to be having Colin from .club. He's going to be talking about why .club is such a great extension and why it's so important to actually get involved with these extensions. Anyway, it's without further ado, I'll let Dan take it away, and I'll be talking to him as well and asking questions and passing on questions from the various members of the webinar. Anyway, thanks a lot for that. See you later. Bye.
All right, well, it's great to have another webinar on Whizzbangsblog, and we have a very special guest speaker this time, which is this our actually first guest speaker versus the other sort of educational webinars we've run in the past on getting the most from your traffic, landing page optimization, developing business models, and so forth like that online. And I must admit, it's a real passion of mine is to help the domaining community learn more and more about domains, but learn more about business, because it's through understanding those two things that we can really prosper in an industry which is, I think, going through a lot of flux. But this time we're really pleased to, I'm really pleased to welcome Dan Schindler from Donuts. And let me say, Dan, it's wonderful to have you here.
Mike, it's a privilege to be invited. I'm grateful.
Yeah, for those of you who are wanting to ask questions and so forth, like from Dan, and I imagine there'll be quite a number of questions coming through, please just type them in the chat box, and I'll do my best to go along and coordinate answering those questions, and just so we can make it a little bit more coordinated. Also, at the end, we'll be having a time of Q&A, but first of all, be asking just Dan to share with us about his views on the world of, obviously, of gTLDs. Dan, as everyone's aware, is from Donuts.co. Donuts has invested a tremendous amount of money and resources into the new gTLD market. And I remember I was at Domain Fest just recently, and it was great talking with Dan, and also to hear his views on the new gTLDs, and also Paul Stahura, one of the other co-founders of Donuts.co. So Dan, I was wondering, just to get things started along and moving along, can you tell us a few things about yourself?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Well, I'm English.
Well, we'll forgive you for that. So you understand cricket then, Dan?
I do understand cricket, played for many years.
So the question I'm going to ask there, I'm going to interrupt you. Have you managed to explain cricket and the benefits of cricket to any Americans?
There's a very famous phrase, there are none so blind as those who will not see.
Yeah, that is true. Oh, boy. I had to ask that question.
No problem. Born and raised in London, moved to sunny California almost 8 years ago. Have been in the domain name space off and on, mainly on since 1994.
94, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, I acquired some domain names and started to take interest back then. I've had a very varied career, which won't be of much interest to the listeners.
Can I ask you, can you still remember your very first domain name?
Yes, I still own it.
You still own it? Okay, what is it?
I'm not going to tell you what it is because I'm not going to.
Oh, boy. So it's not danielschindler.com or something?
Something like that. So, it was something that I've been fascinated with for a long, long time, and first got involved back in '99, building a web design and hosting company in the UK. That's what really pulled me full-time into the space. I remember hearing from the UK Prime Minister at the time, Tony Blair, and Bill Clinton over here, the President, saying that the internet would be more common on the desktop than the telephone, and that turned out to be so correct. I mean, I don't know if you look at how many times you communicate with people during the day, I think the telephone forms a very small part of that. So they were definitely prophetic in that regard. And you know, as I say, I built a web hosting design company back in the UK, and then sold that, and got involved with CentralNIC, the third level registry, again in the UK in 2001. And I moved out here in...
So what was your role? Do you mind me asking, what was your role at CentralNIC?
I was CEO of CentralNIC since my arrival. I was there for 6 or 7 years, which included opening up CentralNIC USA, because I had made a decision that I wanted to come and move here and bring my family here a long time ago.
Yeah.
So donuts is something that is been baking, if you forgive the phrase, for a long time. We're, you know, been around for quite a few years now. It's founded by Paul Stahura, who was the founder of Enom, as most of you will know, by Richard Tyndall, who ran the registry for Ustar, US Biz, by John Nevitt, who was senior counsel at Network Solutions, and myself. We'd all known each other and done business together for a number of years as suppliers and customers. And you know, we were all thinking about this new TLD space, because there's nothing new about it, as you probably know.
Yep.
ICANN was talking about this back at the turn of the century.
It just takes ICANN a long time to do anything, doesn't it?
Yeah, they're a non-for-profit regulator, and like many, that their motivations are perhaps slightly different. So you know, it takes them time to work it all out, because they have to consider the opinions from such a diverse you know, group of individuals.
Yeah.
From people like us who are looking to make money out of this space, to people on the other end of the spectrum who are not. So there's a huge divide, and their job is not easy in regulating and providing compromise, for want of a better word, to the industry, to the extent that we can all live in a safe and secure environment. You know, so the new TLD program was one that was discussed a dozen years ago, and you know, my partners and I have been thinking about it for a long time, and more recently we incorporated Donuts a few years ago with the sole intention of applying for new top-level domains. We raised some considerable funds from venture capital and private equity firms on both sides of the pond, and embarked upon determining which top-level domains we would apply for.
Yeah, someone, as a rumor says it, I'm not sure if it says on your website, that you raised, when you said considerable funds, it's like $200 million. So this is like a lot of money.
Yeah, we don't confirm precise numbers. Yeah. That's primarily because, you know, we're a private company for a start.
Yeah, of course.
We ended up applying for 307 of these top-level domains, which cost almost 60 million in application fees to ICANN alone, and roughly half of the TLDs that we applied for were not contended by any other applicant. So we have those, but the ones that were contended by other applicants, we are still in contention resolution for, or
yeah, of course.
You know, a variety of different auctions. So it would not be wise to confirm how much money.
Of course.
Actually, like to go into an auction.
Yes. No, absolutely. Now, I guess more the statement was you raised a considerable amount of money to invest in this space, and you saw there was a real opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, we did a tremendous amount of research. We started off with more than 3,000 potential candidates, and ended up applying, as I said, for 307. and this took years. And the inputs into working out what we thought would make a good TLD, was a mixture, as we said to our investors on day one, a mixture of art and science. Now that we've got dozens and dozens of our TLDs live and available in different phases, including dozens and dozens in general availability, our thoughts as to what was likely have actually been surpassed. We're thrilled with the start that's been made.
Yeah. So what's the one that you've released at the moment which is doing the best for you?
Well, it's been well publicized. .guru is the most voluminous new TLD launched. We clocked over 50,000 registrations in .guru alone over the weekend or in the last week, and we, that really did surpass our expectations. It would not be honest to say that this was top of our list when we decided what we were going to apply for. But this is why I say it's a mixture of art and science. Look at dot photography, another hugely successful TLD of ours, with an excess of 30,000 names also registered in a matter of weeks. You can look at the photographic market to some extent. You can see how many sites that are out there that contain keywords related to photography, how many domains in the zones with the photography in the domain name, etc., etc. Trying to analyze the guru market is much more.
I was about to say, why do you think this .guru has really been the domain, the extension, which has just sort of been so successful so far?
You know what? I wish I could put my finger on it and tell you that there are a combination of reasons. It is catchy. It is short, which people are used to. Although .technology and .photography are absolutely flying with us right now, and they're far from short.
Yeah.
In fact, most people can't even spell them. But .guru has some kind of appeal in that it's very it's not egotistical. It's to call yourself a guru or something. I think you're taking yourself a little bit less seriously. It's more tongue-in-cheek. So I think that people can claim to be a guru of so many different things without anybody kind of holding them accountable.
Yeah.
I think that those are a few of the reasons why it's so successful.
Yeah, it's interesting, since I've been hearing about .guru a lot and reading about .guru a lot, I'd be walking through a shopping mall and I've been seeing people wearing shirts that just say guru, or I've been seeing guru everywhere, and I don't know whether it's because donuts sort of raised the profile of guru. I've never noticed guru before, but now I'm seeing it everywhere. And I'm sort of thinking to myself, hang on a second here, am I missing out on something? Should I be actually investing in some .gurus? What is it about guru which is obviously captivating the imagination? Should I be investing in things like going and talk to all the gurus in India and sort of say, what's your name, .guru?
Yeah. So it's very interesting. I mean, the opportunities, I'm sure we're going to get into them for domain investors are, in my opinion, enormous. So let's kind of put everything into perspective. Up until now, domain investors have made their fortunes and their livings out of comms and nets and maybe some CCs and info, etc. Now there is a mixed feeling in terms of, well, what are all these new TLDs about, and are they going to devalue the portfolio that I've got? And these are understandable concerns, although I would say probably inflated. So it's like anything in this world, and people have likened domain names to real estate. It's virtual real estate as opposed to bricks and mortar. Well, all brick and mortar has value. Some is more valuable than others.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the same in the domain name space. Your most valuable .com names will be your most valuable .com names. They are the beachfront properties. They are the Manhattans of this world. But that doesn't mean to say that other property, that neighbors or borders these great areas are not valuable too.
Yeah, what do you think is going to happen? Yeah, what do you think is going to happen in terms of raising the value of some of these new gTLDs? What's the thing that's going to be triggering that, you think?
Well, I think there are a number of things that will trigger it. First of all the applications that were made to ICANN in this round, some 1,900 of them for 1,400 different TLDs. Roughly 600 of them, using approximate numbers, but they're close, roughly 600 of them were applied for by brands.
So that's like a .Sony or a .IBM or something like that?
Right.
Yeah.
BMW is an example I use.
Yeah.
BMW is a real-life example. They have applied for their own TLD, and I fully expect that on the TV screens around the world we'll see presentations that include 3 series.BMW, 7 series.BMW, service.BMW, used.BMW, etc.
But do you think they'll route that to the BMWcom, or are they going to actually have that as the destination?
I think they're going to have that as the destination. I remember being in Germany last year, coming back from a series of meetings and being in my hotel room in Munich and seeing on a news program them talk about new TLDs, with the Germans being especially TLD focused and domain focused. And BMW had a representative from their marketing department on the news show talking about how they plan to use it. And not being fluent in German, I didn't get it all, but I'm pretty sure that they intend to use that extension to market their names and build the BMW brand. And when they do that, the world will realize that names don't have to end .com, that there are other alternatives that I will argue are more fitting and more appropriate for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Many millions of names in the .com zone file.
Yeah, did you think, like, some of the questions coming through here, like from Jonathan and Jay actually answered it, but that they're asking questions about, are these domains going to have traffic? Are these going to be domains that, gee, I can go along and buy them and maybe monetize them in some sort of way? What's your view on that?
Yeah, so I think it's inevitable that that will happen. I think there will be a wave. I think that the more domains that we see out in the wild, in other words, being used in the new TLD extensions, the more traffic will come to them, or the more natural traffic. And I fully expect that the search engines will continue to be successful by returning the most relevant answer to the browser's query, regardless of the domain that it's in, the domain name just forming part of the algorithm. And consequently, I expect to see these names be found and growing traffic to these names as the world becomes more aware that new TLDs exist. I mean, Google were the second largest applicant behind us with 101 TLDs of their own, and I'm quite sure that they don't want the registrants of their TLDs not to be found within their search engine or others.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so have you ever heard of any of the plans by Google? Because a lot of people have been asking questions about this. So why is Google buying all these these extensions up and that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, everybody's had lots of conversations with Google. They're as open as they can be, but I don't know for sure what they're going to do. Maybe they haven't decided for sure what they're going to do. What I do know is that they've applied for some names that are open and some names that are closed.
Yep.
The community at different times have been up in arms about that. I for one, am not. They've done a pretty good job in succeeding in pretty much everything that they've done. I can't think of what they haven't done that hasn't worked out and been to the community's benefit. So if they want to have closed TLDs, that was within the rules. They haven't done anything wrong, and I'm not concerned about that. We're in contention with Google on a bunch of TLDs, and they're perfectly reasonable as you would expect them to be. There's people out there saying, well, how can you possibly win? They've got $50 billion in the bank, or whatever they have. Yeah, I'm quite sure it's not all earmarked for new TLDs. So
I completely agree with you on that. I remember years ago I was raising a whole lot of venture capital in the venture capital market. One of the VCs asked me at the time, they said, but what would happen if Microsoft would enter this market? And I said, if we all worried about what Microsoft was going to do, then we would all do nothing. So yeah. I completely agree with you on that. There's a few questions coming through here, so which is really great, and I will get through to them, guys, as fast as I possibly can and bring them into the conversation. But a lot of people that have been very confused about the process of the new gTLDs and how they're being released and so forth like that. So do you want to just outline that and use maybe one of your domains as an example?
Yeah, sure, I will do. But just to answer a previous question I didn't answer that you asked about how these domains will provide good monetization.
Sorry, yeah, yes, if you can continue that.
Yeah. I think one of the key things is to anybody registering domains, whatever they are, is develop these sites out. Don't expect just to park them. That industry is not as rich as it was. We all know that. Your listeners will know that. PPC rates are a fraction of what they used to be. And so develop the sites out. It's the content that is so important, and that's, I think, an important piece of advice in monetizing and profiting out of new TLDs.
By the way, I completely agree with you on a few comments there you made, Dan, because I always try to encourage domain owners, take one of your domains, build it into a business, and make sure it's profitable, and then repeat. In the meantime, I think they should get all their domains, and obviously I have a vested interest in this and having a company like ParkLogic, and give them to a company like ParkLogic, outsource them so they're out of your mind and your thinking, so you can be focused on that business.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's the same advice we've all been given by our grandfathers and our fathers through the generations.
Yes.
Stick to what you know.
Yeah.
And if you've done very well in a particular genre, a particular vertical, then the new TLDs can provide a really good place for you to get really specific, meaningful, SLD, second level domains in this new space. So you asked about the process and how it happens. So obviously, previous TLD launches have happened one every few years, and consequently much easier to handle than hundreds and hundreds and hundreds coming out over next year.
So how fast are they coming out there? Sorry to interrupt. How fast are they coming out?
They're coming out daily.
Daily?
Almost. Certainly from the Donuts perspective, we are launching a new batch of TLDs, on average 4 every week, and have been doing now for 22, I think it's our 23rd week, so, in different phases. Mm-hmm. So let me explain how the process works.
Yep.
The initial launch, when the gates open for business, if you like, is the sunrise period as mandated by the regulator, and this is the period where trademark holders, on production of a valid SMD file, signed mark data file, from the Trademark Clearinghouse, this entity that was created by ICANN between IBM and Deloitte, is this clearinghouse, and they kind of act as the judge and jury on trademark issues. In this case, provide an SMD file to valid trademark holders. Those SMD files are then used by the registrant, by the trademark holder, to acquire names through their registrar in this sunrise period. Now, the Donuts model is to provide a 60-day end date sunrise. Other registries have chosen to do a 30-day sunrise, 30-day sunrise, where on a first-come, first-served basis. Donuts has decided that anybody who has an SMD file should be able to have a say at the end if there are competing trademarks, and consequently a SEDA auction will determine which trademark holder with the same name in the same TLD prevails. So that's the first phase, is the sunrise.
Just on that, the good friend of mine, Adam Dicker, had a domain, elephant.com. And he uses this as an example all the time, where there's an elephant insurance company in France who went along and did a UDRP on him, and then he won the case because elephant's like very generic in that regard. So in terms of the Trademark Clearinghouse, how do they determine like what is generic versus what is a brand?
Yeah. So the answer is, if they have a valid in-use trademark.
Okay.
That's the basic premise for determining whether it's bona fide. There are other parameters, and that's not my specialty. I wouldn't know exactly what all the other parameters are. But that's the overriding premise, that you have a bona fide in-use trademark. And the good news is that it's not the registry or the registrar who has to determine, yeah, we'll give this one to you, but we don't like that one. If you've got the SMD file and you've been cleared by the clearinghouse, then you're good to go.
So basically what we should do...
Trademarks are provided in a particular jurisdiction and in a particular classification. So it is not likely that there are going to be many competing trademarks in the same specific or vertical TLD, as I call it. Trademarks in plumbing, the example of Delta is used commonly, Delta Airlines and Delta Faucet. Well, I don't suppose that Delta Airlines cares too much if the Delta Faucet company wants to use Delta.plumbing. Conversely, the plumbing company is not interested in airlines. So they're not competing trademarks. When we get to the more horizontal TLDs, the online, the webs, and the inks later in the year, then there may be more contention for those names.
So really, the goal here for, say, a potential domain investor would be to register the trademark, and then you can at least be in contention for some of those domains. So if I have mountain.bike...
No, you cannot register that trademark unless you have a trademark and you've been validated by the clearinghouse.
Okay, so...
You cannot register any name.
So could I register a trademark and then say, okay, I've now got the trademark, put it into the clearinghouse, and then have priority over a series of domains?
You have to have an in-use trademark, and it has to have been in use for a certain period of time.
Okay,
so consequently, the whole idea of this program, I mean, this program has been delayed a number of years for a variety of reasons, and one set of those reasons was to provide the rights protections mechanisms that would be suitable to the trademark holders, and this is frankly one of them, whereby only valid trademarks, only bona fide trademark holders can apply for their names in the sunrise period. The general public cannot get in at that stage. At the end of that sunrise period, then there is general availability. Now, there are different types of general availability, if you like. And we've introduced a new program, which I've got to be honest, was first met with some skepticism before it was launched, and now has been universally accepted by our registrars. We've certainly seen an enormous volume of registrations during this period, which I will explain, by domain investors. It's called EAP, or Early Access Program. So traditionally, at the end of a sunrise period, there would be a land rush period. This is another 60 days where every man and his dog gets to find out that a certain name is available, and then the prevailing registrant is the one who pays the most in auction. We don't believe in that at Donuts. We've said from the very beginning that we want to leave meat on the bone, and I think our pricing has been indicative of that. In fact, there have been examples, many of them, where registrants, domain investors, have bought domains from Donuts, even in their early access program, which I'll elaborate on in a moment, and for a significant premium during that period, and then made them available on the aftermarket in both Afternic and Cedo. I know of examples of dozens of names at least now, where they have been flipped by domain investors for a sizable profit a day or two after they were acquired. So that's the evidence of the program working, I think, and the value in new TLDs. But let me tell you a little bit about our early access program. It's a 7-day period, not a 60-day period. And the reason for that is that we believe that we live in a world where one demands instant gratification. Even now, you send a text message or an iMessage or a WhatsApp message. If you see your 2 ticks or your delivered note, you know that the recipient has seen it. You're expecting an instant response. Something gets posted on Facebook. If it isn't like 2 seconds later, you wonder what the hell's going on. That's the world we live in now.
No, I completely agree with you on that.
Waiting 60 days for an auction to find out whether you've won the domain or not, and then paying more than you would normally pay because everybody knows you overpay in an auction, we don't believe is the way to go. So our early access program is just 7 days, and it's kind of a a Dutch auction in that the prices diminish each day for the 7 days. So on day one, when the doors open for general availability, the prices are higher for all names in the zone. And day two, they're a quarter of that price. Day three, they're half of that price again. Day four, they're half of that price again, etc. Down to days 5, 6, and 7, where there's just a nominal premium account charged. So it's on a first-come, first-served basis.
So let's imagine
notification to the registrant.
So let's imagine I go along and purchase a domain for, and I get one of them in the auction for $200. Okay.
Yeah.
Does that mean I'm now paying $200 every single year, or then it drops down to the $10 a year or something like that?
Yeah, great question, and the answer is no. The early access fee is a one-time only fee. Consider it, getting into the sale early fee. It does not renew at all. If a fee was, and I just give rough numbers, if a fee was $100 and a domain was $10, then at renewal the registrant would just pay $10.
Okay, so what's the average price for these new gTLDs now? Typically across the board, you're saying?
It's so difficult to answer. As somebody who spends all day, every day, including today, selecting premium names in a TLD and determining what their price should be, there are thousands in every TLD, and there are hundreds of TLDs in the Donuts registry. So I don't think that there's anyone outside of this firm who's pricing names as prolifically as we are. And it's still an impossible question to answer. Let me just give an example, though, because premium names are defined hitherto as thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. In the secondary market, what we're talking about now is the primary market. And Donuts is a registry that has a variety of different name ratings for its SLDs. So we have a dozen name ratings, in fact, in total, and the standard price of a domain may be very com-like. It may be a little bit higher. I won't disrespect our registrar channel by telling you what the wholesale prices are.
Yeah.
But they start low, and some names are higher. So there are names in the Donuts zones that are premium names, but they're only $15.
Okay. So it's $15.
Several name ratings. So basically, we define a premium name as a name that is not the standard price. So if it's a $10 name standard, it may be a $15 name. Maybe it will be a premium name.
And you could have another premium names of say $5,000.
Yes.
Okay, so you may be selling some domains for $5,000, but when they actually buy the domain, that's the price they paid. Do they then only pay, say, the $10 renewal? Yes. Okay, so it comes down to a standardized renewal price.
I just want to be clear. I understood that. We're not price capped. No new gTLD registry is price capped like VeriSign has been because of its monopoly position. So new gTLD registries have the ability to be able to increase prices. They'll do that with trepidation once they've got a user base, because you don't want to work so hard to get a user base and then lose them. So that's certainly not our intention. But we price our names on an annual renewable price. If you pay $10 this year, which I think is what you asked, you pay $10 next year, you pay $10 the year after, save for price increases.
Yeah, I just wanted to Yeah, sorry, I just want to interrupt there. I think that's really interesting. So basically what you're saying is it's market rules play. And that, sure, you can double your prices and everything like that, but the market may respond in a negative fashion towards you, and suddenly all the domains drop. So it's a balancing act. There's a few questions that have been coming through here, and some things you may or may not want to answer, Dan. Like, how many wholesale price points does Donuts have? Have you banded them or something like that, or?
Yes, we have a dozen. We call them name ratings.
Okay. Yeah, because it'd be very difficult with all of the gTLD extensions you guys have to individually do every single domain, wouldn't it?
Right, and I think one of the things that we have borne in mind, because some of us come from registrar backgrounds as well, is understanding the magnitude of the effort required by a registrar to incorporate a new TLD. Now multiply that out by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. You know, they wouldn't know where to begin if we didn't make it simple.
Exactly.
My advice to any new TLD applicant who may be on this webinar today, Mike, is to say, keep it simple. You may want to innovate, and we've certainly tried to do that, but you've got to make it logical and workable for the registrar. Otherwise, you're just asking too much from them.
No, absolutely. Which brings up a point. Are you seeing the registrars are actually trying to price the gTLDs differently from each other in a competitive market type situation, or are they? It's difficult for you to answer this, but you see there is competition beginning to happen there?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's difficult for me to answer. I think that the prices are pretty standard across the registrar network. We have over 100 registrars connected that have probably registered historically 99.9% of all registrations the world has ever seen. And they're connected to us and selling our names, and they have their own pricing models, just like they always have for .com. I mean, we all remember that not that long ago, Network Solutions selling the same name that they paid the same price at VeriSign for a .com name at $34.95 and GoDaddy at $199. The retailers have their pricing models, and doesn't affect what we sell it at. They determine what they want to sell to their customers. And we've seen recently Berlin, for example, not one of our TLDs, but Berlin, that was registrants enjoyed a free for the first year promotion in Germany for a period of time.
So sort of like .info, when it was first released. It was given to all of the people that own the .com.
Different promotion. Yeah, if you've got a .com, you could get the info to go with it. I'm not in favor of that at all. I've been quite public about not being in favor of that. I think it devalues the brand at a time when we've been saying how there's pent-up demand and great value for these things. So you won't see us doing that.
Yeah. Okay, a few other questions that have been pouring through here. The other one was from Howard New. He's one of the conveners of the Traffic Conference. And by the way, I've got to give you a free plug here, Howard, is that everyone, you got to get to Traffic. I know I'll be making that journey across the Pacific Ocean once again, and this time I'm going to be bringing my wife, which will be nice. So Howard asked, are you willing to put a few of these domains, few of the good premium domains, to the auction at Traffic? That's putting you on the spot there, Dan.
No, it's a good question, and Howard, nice to see you or hear from you. It's possible. So let me elaborate a little bit on that answer. I'm a great believer that for auctions to prevail, and we've said that we don't think that the auction model is necessarily the model for new TLDs, given that if I were to say back of the envelope, if there were just 1,000 premium names in any Virgin TLD, and they were just $1,000, and there are 800 new generic TLDs, my quick math says that would be $800 million would need to be sitting around waiting to be invested in this space. I don't believe that's the case. And I know there are more than 1,000 names. There are probably more than $1,000. So you're now expecting billions of dollars to be available. That said, if an auction is going to be conducted where the audience is wide enough to ensure that the best price and the best users are in the room or on the phone able to bid, I'm definitely up for that. I don't want to see our names necessarily bought, parked, sat on, and then sold at a later date. Hopefully for a profit. That I know that domain investors have done well with that in the past, and I accept and respect that. But looking at it from a registry's perspective, we look a bit more longer term. We want to see our names out there and used, and my argument would be that if they are out there and used, those names that you have invested in those spaces will become more valuable, rather than if the best names are held back. So we have held some names back, registry reserved as it's called, for a rainy day, and a rainy day might well be because we want to give the name away. The example I used at Domain Fest a week or so ago in my address was car.insurance, just an example, not one of ours, but if if Geico wanted to use car.insurance and put that on the TV screens across the nation, I'd give that name to them for free, even though it might be $1 million name. And I do that because it would add to the value of the .insurance TLD for everyone who has a name in that.
It'd be like free marketing, essentially.
Right. So the answer to Howard is yes. If I felt that the audience was appropriate enough, I would do it. Not to disrespect the domain investor crowd in any way, shape, or form, because they've been early adopters of new TLDs and are our long-term friends. But just to make them available to domain investors in the room, unless we had some assurance that we're going to be developed out, I don't think is in their best interest or ours.
Yeah, I'll let you guys sort it out between the two of you, but Howard and yourself there, Dan. There's a whole lot of other questions as well. I think Karen Domain sort of asked, is there any opportunity to actually display the renewal price in the Who Is record? But I think that would be pretty difficult for you, wouldn't it? Because that's going to be tied to the different registrars and what they set their pricing at.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's selling it on a different
So
price.
it's more of a market issue, isn't it, of just finding out which registrars are offering the best deal?
Yes, and as I say, I think they're pretty consistent at the moment. Things might change. Although we have seen some promotions done by some of our registrars in different markets, where perhaps there's a little bit more competition. I'm long since of the belief that price elasticity in domain names doesn't happen until names are very much more expensive than the standard price names.
Yep.
If a company is, if a registrant is a company who should be valued by registrars and registries, he ought to be able to afford to pay 30, 40, 50 bucks a year to get his name, visible almost throughout the entire world 24/7. When he's likely to pay 300 bucks a year for a single lineage ad in the local yellow pages, which for years hasn't gone into the house, front doorstep.
Yeah. Another question's been asked is that if I go and purchase a domain for, say, $2,000, how do I know what I'm going to be paying for my renewal each year? Is there a way of knowing that? Is that the registrar's publishing that? They're saying, hey, it's $2,000, but the renewal's only going to be $10.
Right, so this is a very good question, and I think people need some reassurance for this. And I'll put it out to the audience to actually ask if they've got some feedback on this. The way we are looking at it is every price within our name rating has an annually renewable price. So if it's $1,000, it renews at $1,000. If it's $10, it renews at $10. Now, in the secondary market, the domain investor community, and all of us who've ever bought a domain name before in the old world, have felt that they own the domain name, and they would pay up to millions of dollars, classic examples, for a domain name, and then they would pay $10 a year renewal. Now, that world may change. I'm not sure whether people are considering the fact that the reason that the world has been like that up until now is because that VeriSign was price capped. The reason they were price capped is because of their monopoly. Mm-hmm. I'm quite sure that VeriSign will be considering looking to get those price caps removed, because they'll claim that there's no longer a monopoly. Look at all these new TLDs that are eating into their market share and eroding new registrations.
But could it be seen like, but Dan, a lot of the people out there would say that each of the registries are essentially a monopoly in themselves for that particular extension. Would that be right?
But nobody has a monopoly, because there are enough TLDs out there to provide variety and choice to us. So I don't see that. Also, water finds its own level. Anybody knows that's done 101 economics. It's a supply and demand situation. If we were to price a name at $10 today and make it $1,000 next year, what's the likelihood of renewal? That's not what this is about. It's about growth and about getting people using our names and telling people that they've got value, hence the meeting of value.
Yeah.
So, you could say that about anything. If Apple wanted to put their triple their iPhone prices, they could. but more people might buy Samsungs.
Okay, well let's imagine that, Dan, I go along and I purchase camping.guru. Okay, so I've got camping.guru and I build it into a multi-billion-dollar company. What's to stop you from making that registration fee for that domain now $100,000 a year, $1 million a year?
Well, we have terms within our RRAs with our registrars that prevent us from doing that, because that question was the first question that was on their minds when they find out about new TLDs and the fact that we're not price capped.
Yeah, of course.
There are protections within that to stop that happening, and it's people focus on the very super high value names in a TLD. The reality is that for a registry, the enormous majority, the 90+% of its value comes from its standard price registrations, not the super high value.
No, of course they do.
Yeah, I would ask you, what is the value of the most valuable SLD in a TLD if there are 5,000 names in the zone file, compared to the value of that most valuable SLD if there are 100,000 or 500,000 or 1 million names in an SLD?
Yeah.
So it's absolutely not in any registry's interest to try and throw out the bait, get a good name sold for cheap, wait to see that you've turned it into a multi-billion-dollar company, and then try and extort the maximum value from it. That isn't going to happen.
Okay, so can you price discriminate per domain then in your under the rules of ICANN? So for instance, the lower value domains are only going to have a renewal price of $10, but you built a $1 million business, a $1 billion business, you've invested into that. I'm going to charge you $1 million a year for that one now. So are you?
As I said, our RRA prevents us from price hikes, anything like close to what you're talking about.
Okay, no, I just want to reassure the people who are listening to this to make sure they understand that, hey, there's some really strict rules in place that prevent you from doing that sort of thing.
I appreciate you for bringing it up. It's absolutely correct. And what I would say to you is, I made the statement before of all the registrars that we have on board, including the world's biggest registrars, GoDaddy and Enom and One-on-One and Web.com et al. Now, do you really think that they would sign an agreement with us or any new gTLD registry that allowed the registry to pull the rug from under the feet of their customer?
Yeah. I think that's a really good point, is that I think there'd be a rebellion amongst the registrars.
They would. They'd stop selling our names. Then where are we?
Yeah, correct. So it's a one-shot game. You're not building a business, then you're building an extortion racket.
Absolutely. We spent just under $60 million on our applications alone. We've been in auction to resolve private contention for many multiples of millions beyond that. And we've still got 100-odd TLDs that we've still got to go and pay considerably more money to win.
Yeah.
We're not about to invest that money on the back of just trying to extort somebody who happens to have built a multi-billion-dollar name on one SLD.
Yeah, I think there's some other interesting questions that are coming through here. Do you see, this is from Casey, do you see any new gTLDs such as .luxury with aggressive marketing can overtake the .com to become the most expensive extension? Or is this a 10-year play or something like that? Like, what sort of time frame do you see in some of these? Are they actually going to challenge the .com?
Well, okay, this is a great question, and I thank Casey for raising it. And the question can be broken into lots of different sort of fragments, so lots of different answers. Is there going to be a TLD out there at any time in our lifetimes that has more than 112 million names in the zone file? No, I don't believe there is.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Will there be a combination of new TLDs that in some will have that sort of number of names under management? Absolutely, yes. I think that there will be. I mean, remember, com's had a 20-year head start.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think the important metric to look at, and I'm not sure whether Casey's question actually relates to the highest value SLD, It's possible. I mean, worth is what you get for something. Somebody who, Gilmore.family may be worth $1 million a year to you, and I don't have .family yet, by the way. But to
trust me, it's worth a lot more than that.
well, there you go. To other folks, it isn't worth anything. So,
oh, come on!
well, to a Schindler, it's not worth a lot. I think that's the point. Worth is what you get for something. So yeah, there will be examples, and it's difficult to say because even domain name sales history so much of it is not published. It's private information. So much of the acquisitions acquire a business and not just a domain name, even though the company name is a domain name too. So it's difficult. It's, as you know very well, it's difficult to do that. I think that where we're at is we're going from a world where nothing's available to a world where everything's going to be becoming available. And in my opinion, and you might say, well, you would say this, wouldn't you? But it's about providing choice and meaningful names to potential registrants, existing and new registrants, that are much more appropriate than .com. Now, I know that there are plenty of listeners that have very valuable .com names, and I hope that I do too. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't mean very much to many people. If you are an English speaker, by the time you get to 3 years of age, you know what lawyer means, you know what plumber means, you know what accountant means, you know what football means, you get my drift. You ask the next 100 registrants of .com what .com means, they have a .com, and 95 plus will not tell you. They won't know. So I think that's the opportunity that we always said that we're buying a sliver of mind share because people know what they're going to get. And you could argue that these new TLDs are actually shorter than .com because even if you register Gilmore.photography is a shorter name than GilmorePhotography.com. Yeah,
I think that it's an interesting point you raised, but the thing that really got me thinking about the opportunities in the new gTLD space after Domain Fest, and trust me, the 16-hour flight back from LA to Melbourne was a long time to think about it, was trying to picture what would the landscape on the internet look like in 5 years' time, 10 years' time versus now. And I think that when I began to think in those sort of terms, I thought, okay, so what is the opportunity then? And are we going to be the domain investors that look back and sort of say, gee, you know what, I wish I had? Or are we going to be the domain investors that said, gee, I'm glad I didn't waste my money? And that's the challenge. It's almost like a hedging of bets type situation for many domain investors.
It's an interesting and factual statement you make, Michael, but doesn't that apply to anything?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you pay too much for your art, and the economy, crashes, you could have overpaid for it. Your art, your car, your house, your gold, and your domain names. The reality is that this is no different to anything else. 50,000 people have already registered in .guru, including thousands of those registrations by very well-renowned and respected domain investors. I think that is a signal that there is great opportunity to be had here. Not every .com name has been a good investment by any stretch of the imagination because they're not the right one to buy. And I think that will apply to any asset that anybody buys.
No, I completely agree with you on that, Dan, is that the thing I'm viewing these assets as they're a longer-term play, or they're a play where I'm actually going to build them out and start to build a business on them. And the other business opportunity I saw was actually trying to partner somehow with the registries. Because the thing that registries really want is traffic, to be able to get more exposure to their domains. So I thought there was, okay, the domains aren't going to have traffic right now. It's unlikely you're going to be able to flip them. I know you've got some cases where you say they have been flipped, but it's not going to be mass right now. There's too much supply. So it's the business models are develop one out, take a long-term play, long-term view. Well, the third one is work out some way to partner with a registry. Would that summarize it, you think, from a domain investor perspective?
Yeah, I think it would. I mean, we other registries, and we would even consider it. There are founders programs of a fashion, which we're happy to entertain. We want to see these names out there and used because we believe that enhances the value for everybody who owns one of those names.
Yeah.
So I think that is a fair summary.
I can feel another blog coming on here. Anyway, there's a few more questions I just want to belt through, ask you. Just, do you incentivize registrars in creating and promoting special apps for new gTLDs, like easy uploads for photography and things like that? Or you basically are the registry?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is we do not. Now, there are other new TLD registries who have bundled other services together or provide white label services perhaps to registrars to bundle with their names. One of the problems that we have, and that whilst there are tremendous advantages to our portfolio approach, for want of a better phrase, is that we have economy of scale. One of the disadvantages is that we cannot be building out apps for every single one of our TLDs. And we're very much of the belief that our channel is the existing ICANN accredited registrar channel and their resellers. That's where the world knows to go and buy domain names, and we don't want to bite the hand that feeds us. So we see us, the analogy I've used is a bit like a diamond mine. We excavate the diamonds, but De Beers, i.e. the registrars, they cut them and size them and polish them and make jewelry with them.
That's probably not a very good example because didn't De Beers get into a lot of trouble in the past with all sorts of black market type things?
Well,
so choose a different one there.
Maybe not the best analogy, but you get
the general idea.
We're the manufacturer, we're the wholesaler. We take the raw materials and we make that available to the registrars to build out what they want to build out.
Okay, so just move.
And we those codes.
Yeah, just moving on to some of these other questions here. Casey asked another really good, interesting question around Daily Mail, like paid a whole lot of money, like $1 million for the .com and that sort of stuff. Daily Mail is a UK company. Do you feel that the new gTLDs are going to impact the ccTLDs a lot more than, say, the .com?
No, I think that they're going to impact all incumbent registries, all incumbent TLDs. And again, you'll think that I would say that, wouldn't I? But logic tells me they will. They're more relevant. Now, if you have got a business that is just in a country, you have no intention of expanding, you don't provide your products or services overseas, then maybe you're very happy in that habitat of that country code. That's good. Good luck.
Yeah.
But the world has become a very much smaller place with the advent of e-commerce, and consequently, why would anyone want to limit themselves to that? So where you have opportunities in meaningful and specific and obvious TLDs, that is the natural habitat that you should reside in your business, then why wouldn't you register them? They're more appropriate. You're already seeing the statistics that are published of new TLDs already eroding, eating into other existing.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point. A question asked by Jay Westerdahl, actually. He said, is there a guide being published which is, okay, renewal price ranges for this domain will be from this particular figure to this particular figure. So .guru, it's going to be from $10 to $20, anticipated renewal price range. .photography is going to be from $20 to $30. You can expect the price range. Is there such a guide available?
No, I don't believe there is, and it's an interesting question, and Jay may become a new gTLD registry too, and I wonder whether he would like to publish that information. But primarily, if you think it through, it's not us selling the name with the registration, it's the registrar selling it. We're not selling it directly. So to publish that would be to handicap our registrars, and if they wanted to make the price much more or much less, then they will. I think I've just seen a note that Jay already is a TLD registry.
Yeah.
I apologise for not knowing that, Jay, and good luck with you. And he is publishing his... and I think, if you... The problem of doing something like that is magnified when you have hundreds of TLDs.
Yeah, I think it's a great.
And to my knowledge, there is no such guide right now.
I think it'd be really interesting to actually to build one. In fact, so that people get an idea that, hey, you may have bought this domain for $500, but you know what, the renewal is going to be around about, they say, the $20 a year, because the moment you get a sort of hunter manful of that information. So just moving on here, Howard said, hey,
I'm not escaping the question. I hope I've tried to answer it as honestly as possible.
No, you actually have.
Logic.
Yeah.
The likelihood of a registry massively increasing its prices is just commercial suicide. It's just not going to happen.
No.
And as I say, we have agreements with the registrars to stop it.
No, I think you misunderstand the question there. I think the question is more a case of, I would just like to know that I've bought this domain for $500, that my registration fee is going to be roughly this amount. Well, I imagine they can probably get a lot of that information from their own registrar. But I just want to move on. There's quite a number of questions coming through here. One of them was from Howard. He said, would you be willing to have a presentation of donuts.co gTLDs at Traffic?
I'm sorry, you broke up, Mike. Can you say it again?
No problem. This is from Howard New, one of the conveners of the Traffic Conference. He's just invited you to do a presentation of donuts.co gTLDs at the Traffic Conference.
Delighted to accept.
Yeah. Well, how's that, Howard? You've heard it here straight away. Good answer.
I mean, the only caveat I would give is that it doesn't clash with something else. Yeah, I'll be happy to do that.
Okay, that was Howard just jumped on. He said, look forward to it. So, and Howard, I'd love to have a chat to you about a few things on that front as well. But anyway, Jay asked a question. Alan Dodd. I have a question about a type of name that is a regular occurrence with the new extensions. Take .marketing. What does Daniel think of a name like, say, consultant.marketing, where it's the wrong way around versus marketing.consultant?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I try and answer that in my own mind. I ask myself that question all day, every day, with that exercise that I'm currently going through. So that's a really good question. I think the answer is, where it's not semantically accurate, it'll be worth more the correct way around than it's worth the wrong way around. But quite what it's worth, is remains to be seen. What I will tell you is, we really, I think, have evidenced what we've been preaching for a long time now, that it is our plan and will remain our plan to leave meat on the bone. We really think that the medium and longer term plays here are to get names in the zone files that are used, and when that happens, the TLDs and the SLDs will all become more valuable.
Yeah. I think it's a really wise decision on your part, is the fact that you want to see these domains being used by real businesses, up on billboards, on TV, on the radio, and so forth like that, so they get out there. When I look at, say, .eu, for instance, it really stagnated because although the domains got snapped up by domain investors, and they were never actually used by companies for a long time, and it really stagnated that whole extension.
Yeah, I think so, and time will tell. I mean, I think how one measures the success of the TLD is another debate. I heard during the course of last week how even .NET was deemed by somebody who was a very experienced journalist in the technology space for a national newspaper, tell me that .NET was a failure. So when you hear people say that .info is a failure, .NET is a failure, .tv is a failure, you really are just saying that the only barometer for success is .com. I don't see that in any way, shape or form. I think that there are lots of ways of looking at it, and not to appear arrogant, I hope this is not the case, but just as a matter of fact, the first 20-odd TLDs that Donuts has launched have returned the $185,000 that it paid ICANN in a matter of, in some cases, minutes. So
I think that's a really important question,
because it doesn't have 100 million names on it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important question you're raising there. Is that I wrote a blog recently on sort of saying, guys, I think the registries are going to make quite a bit of money, and so they should, because they took the risk and so forth. And I came away from Domain Fest thinking, damn, I wish I went along and registered and bought some of these up myself. Yeah, and once I understood some of the numbers, I'd spent some time with Paul Sahura, which is one of your co-founders, and it really became quite interesting. And since that article, I've had so many people sort of say, no, they're all going to go broke, and it's going to be just the red in the water, and they're going to be bleeding red ink. And I had a lot of emails saying, no, you're wrong. And I must admit, I look at the numbers, and I'm a numbers guy, and as far as I can work out, it's a great model for registries.
Yeah, from your mouth to God's ears, as they say. It's so far so good, you know. And what I would say is, you know, I think that the another, you know, view, which is hard to argue with, is that there are TLDs that we've launched that have been a tremendous return on investment so far, that nobody else applied for, and other people said these guys have gone crazy.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think you can know that a business that Paul Stahora is running, there's not much craziness there.
I've known Paul he's been a good friend of mine. I've known him for many years, and one thing for sure, he's no man's fool. So,
He's a pain in the arse. But
yeah, absolutely. I can imagine he would be. Can I just say, like, I just want to wrap it up right now. There's a lot of questions coming through and that sort of thing. And what I'd invite people to do is there's a group on Whizzbangsblog, on my blog called gTLDs, new gTLDs. Please ask your questions in there to the group, and you'll be able to be kept on an ongoing stream. And Dan, we'd love to welcome you to become a part of that group, and so that you can answer some of these questions, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and which must be frustrating for people like yourselves who have invested so much into this space.
Yeah, I'm delighted to do so. Just before we wrap up, I just wanted to just continue the process, the flow from Sunrise, our early access program. Then, of course, a week later, it goes into general availability. There are no premiums on any of those prices, and they become available to everybody. So we launch all of our phases on a Wednesday at 1600 UTC. Domain investors should be aware, and a lot of them are aware, that that's the case, because they're there the second the doors open to make sure they avail themselves of the names that they want to get.
Yeah. So there's some other interesting questions there. I think that we can push them into the group discussion just online. I'm very concerned about your time, Dan, and we've taken up a lot of it. Sorry?
I'm good for 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Okay, fantastic. Well, there's some other questions there, such as Dietmar asked also earlier, he said, hey, don't forget about domain in Europe as well as traffic, and you've got to come to domain in Europe. So we've got the two conveners of the two continents banging heads, I think, there a little bit. So make sure...
May the 8th and May the 9th, I'll see what I can do. It's a way away from me, and I have to go backwards and forwards. But depending on the appearance fee, you never know. That's
correct, I'm about to say. And the first class airfare, correct?
Well, of course.
Of course. Yeah.
Assuming his private jet's not available.
Oh, that's right. Well, Dietmar, maybe he can make that available to you or something like that, his own private jet. If he has one. But anyway, so a few things here is, the question was, why is it that you put each of the new gTLDs you have into a separate company? Is that just a business decision you made?
It was.
Lawyers and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it was just advice from lawyers and accountants. There's no reason for it. They're all wholly owned subsidiaries of Donuts here in the US.
Yeah.
They're not overseas corporations at all. They're all Delaware LLCs.
Yeah.
And, it was just a business decision that was we knew that we expected. We didn't know. We expected there would be contention. When you apply for a TLD, you know that in the event that there is contention, that there is this ICANN auction of last resort, and we just felt going forward it might be an easy way to transfer a company that had its own LLC.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I have to ask this question. A lot of people have been asking me this. They said, why donuts.co? For a start, why donuts? Is there a particular history for why it's called donuts? And the other thing, why .co?
Okay, yeah, great questions. And I've been asked them a lot, so some people do know the answer to this. So, donut stands for domain nuts.
Okay, so you guys are complete nuts about domains.
We're nuts about domains. That was kind of our first and original strapline, if you like. More industry focused because obviously we're not consumer facing. But if you look, as you'll see the spelling of the letters, the first letter, the middle letter, and the last letter are DNS, and that's exactly where we're at. So it's kind of an in-joke, and the worst, most crass in-joke is the color of the D. As I'm sure the more observant listeners would have seen on our logo, is a TLD. That's the color teal.
Oh my gosh. Was that deliberate?
I can tell you it was pretty crass.
Was that deliberate?
Yes.
Oh, no way. So some marketer said we've got to have it teal in colour.
Paul is the world's thinker, so he looks at everything from a million different aspects.
Thank goodness he's on your side.
Absolutely right.
Okay.
And in terms of donuts.co, well, again, not to disrespect .com and where it's achieved, albeit in a near monopolistic situation, but we're not about com. We're about new TLDs now. So we've gone for a .co name, and I would expect that you'll see that change in the months to come. We own .domains, for example. So it wouldn't be a surprise to see that change, I'm quite sure.
I know that I think the guy who owns donuts.com must be getting a lot more traffic to his domain, because the number of times I've typed donuts.com in, it's been incredible. Fair enough. Okay, just any other questions just there coming through? And just while the people sort of ponder some of the things you've shared, can I just say thank you very much for sharing them. The thing that I found is that I was actually quite cynical about the new gTLD space. And a part of the reason why I think I was is I didn't really investigate to the level that needed to be investigated. I was too busy doing what I was doing. And I think that's a trap that many domain investors can fall into, is they're so busy doing their own thing that they don't really investigate a potential ground-changing opportunity. So I began to dig into it, and I must admit I had the privilege at Domain Fest of sitting down with yourself and Paul and so forth like that, and really sort of trying to understand what is the driving force. And it really began to change a lot of my thinking around this space, and I began to say, okay, where are the business opportunities for me? What can I do as also for ParkLogic? As a part of that is that I think Jonathan Van Clue said, hey, we can't add new gTLDs to ParkLogic. Do I, Jonathan? That's being sorted out at the moment. That was actually an oversight. I really began to take a look at what are the business opportunities and how can I avail myself of these, and not forgetting that .com is king. And .com will be reigning for quite some time. I think there was a debate at one of the recent traffic shows of .com versus new gTLDs, which one's going to win. I don't think it's an issue about which one's going to win. It's an issue about where is their potential opportunity. And that's what I always look for in business. And that's just a few general comments there to throw at you there, Dan.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's not only where the opportunity is, but what's the most natural habitat for you?
Yeah.
So, maybe it's income. Maybe it isn't income. Maybe you are in the law business and you want to be in a TLD that relates to law or lawyer or attorney. Maybe you're in the financial services industry and you want to be in .money or .finance. I just think that there's plenty for everyone to go around. I think you're going to find now that you're moving to a world where you can get a meaningful and specific extension that fits the business plan that you have. And it's not going to be that long before people realize that that these extensions do exist, and there'll be natural typing traffic. I mean, I cited the .BMW, any of these brand holders advertising, you're going to see it. We've already seen, I'm not sure if they're up on our website yet, but we've had people tweet photographs and messages photographs of our TLDs out in the wild that have been liveried on the side of a van and trucks. So
what does that make you feel like? What does that make you feel like?
Great. I hope there are millions more of them.
Yeah. I think Jay Westerville's just asked the question, is there a newsletter you can subscribe to or something like that from Donuts?
Yes, there is. Go to donuts.co and you can subscribe to the newsletter, absolutely.
That's great, and I really like I said before, we do need to wrap things up here. I know there's other also people need to go. Can I say, Dan, it has been wonderful having you on here, and I encourage you and also other members who are in the webinar right now is let other people know about the group on my blog, Whizzbangsblog. Go in there, subscribe to the group, and so we can get some conversations happening around the positive nature of this for domain investors. There's been so much negative stuff coming out. I think we need to have some positive things coming out. And proper business conversations. The thing that I always try to stress on my blog is having a good business conversation. And that involves numbers, not just emotions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I get it, and we should do that. And I think it doesn't matter whether I say there are good opportunities to invest in new TLDs. It's not my opinion that matters unless I'm selling the product. You wouldn't expect me to say otherwise. What I would say is look at the evidence. Already, Donuts has registered over 400,000 domains in the matter of weeks. And there is evidence of the Pied Pipers of the domain investor community investing in new TLDs and investing in SLDs in those new TLDs and already making a great return on their investment. So I think the evidence is there for people to see. Whether I say it's good or bad is not really the point.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm just going to wrap it up there and say thank you once again, Dan, for your time. It's been really good having you here. And for all those people that are, all the attendees there in the webinar, really appreciate your time as well. I plan on having more of these webinars. There'll be a webinar shortly, probably once a week. I'd like to be able to get some other people from the different new gTLDs. I think we'll have the guys from .club. We'll talk about and espouse why .club is such a great thing to invest in. I'll also be intermingling that with some practical webinars been running on optimizing traffic for your domains and all that sort of thing to extract the value of what you've got as well, and building business models. I just wrote an article on marketing online on how you can market your products and some of the basics that you may get in an MBA and so forth. And it's really my goal is to help educate the domaining community on the real opportunities that are in this space, because it's one I must admit I'm very, very passionate about. So thank you very much for that, Dan. And what I'll do is I'm going to unmute everyone. So if you everyone, if you want to just say a few words or something like that, and it's going to be chaos for a second as we say, thanks very much for Dan and his time and his efforts in this space. Anyway, so there, everyone is now unmuted.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank
you very much. Learned a lot.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be.
Okay then. Well, thanks very much. I'm going to close this off now, and we can move it online. Thanks very much for that. See you later, everyone. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Well, there you have it. There, from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Dan did a great job trying to explain some of the very intricate complexities of what it means to invest in the new gTLD space. Some of you will believe it and some of you won't believe it, but that's okay. The whole thing is though, you now have more information so you can make a more informed decision. And that's really the goal here. Now, for those of you who are wondering, join the gTLD group on Whizzbangsblog, and there'll be further discussion will be taking place there. So make sure you go ahead and do that so you can take part in those discussions. It's been great being with you, and shortly we'll be having some more featured guests on the videos, and also our normal regular training videos on training webinars, on what you can do with your domains and your domain portfolio business. In the meantime, check out Whizzbangsblog, and I look forward to seeing you again sometime. Thanks a lot. Bye.